Hi, fifth graders. Happy Thursday. For the last 3 days, we've been learning how to add fractions, and today you are going to be learning how to subtract fractions. So we're going to use the knowledge that we've had for the last few days, and we are going to make our subtracting fractions anchor chart. It's going to be the same steps as adding fractions, except we're going to be subtracting. So step number 1, if you remember from yesterday, is to write. We are going to write our fraction. And yesterday we even said a few steps later that we should probably say that we're going to write it vertically. And vertically, it just means that we're going to write it up and down. So the fraction that we are going to be using for our subtracting anchor chart today is we are going to subtract 6/9 minus 2/6. And just another thing that we can point out right away, just like we did yesterday, is that we have unlike denominators. And when we have unlike denominators, that means we have to take a few extra steps in order to solve this problem. And these are the steps that we're going to take just like yesterday. And remember too, if I am going too fast in my video, you can always pause it and then go at your own speed. I recommend, just like yesterday, that if you would like to use markers, maybe to just do it in pencil first, just in case you mess up, then you're able to erase if you use a pencil. You can always go back over it with some fun colored markers. So our step 1 was to write it vertically, and we did. The fraction we're doing today is 6/9 minus 2/6, and we have some unlike denominators. Step number 2 is we need to find the lowest common denominator. And we use the letters L, C, D to represent that. If you're still confused sometimes when you see LCD that means lowest common denominator, go ahead just like I am, and you can write it down underneath. So we can write lowest common denominator. And remember, the word common just means that we're finding a number that is the same. That is a multiple of both 9 and 6. We're trying to find the same number in that row. So we're going to write out the multiples of our denominators. So we can make a little note there. We're going to write multiples of denominators. So we're going to go ahead and make our sideways T-chart. And we've got, today we have 9 and 6. So we've got 9 and 6. And we are finding the multiples of those. So when we do 9, we go 9, 18, 27, 36. We can probably stop there. We'll see if we have to do any more. Remember, I always recommend that you write down 4 or 5 to start out with. Now we've got our multiples of 6. We have 6, 12, 18, 24. So we have to find a number that is the same in both rows. And if we have a handful of numbers that are the same, which we don't for this problem, but if we do, we want to find the number that is the smallest. So I see that I have an 18 in the top row and an 18 in the bottom row. So I'm going to go ahead and circle those because I'll be using 18 for my denominator in step 3. So I'm going to go ahead and move this up just a little bit so you can see everything. Step 3 is the same as yesterday. We are going to rewrite, some E there, rewrite and solve. So we're going to rewrite from up above. So we've got 6/9 minus 2/6. And we need to rewrite this fraction and come up with those, how we can get our new numerators that go along with our denominator that we found over here. of 18. So you can go ahead and do these same steps that I am. Everything that I'm writing down on my paper, you need to write down on your paper. So we've got that 6 times what's going to equal that. Fill in all of these little steps, because remember, these steps are already partially filled in for you on your Seesaw assignments. But if I were to just give you a problem like this, I want you to know how to create this part of it too. So we've got 6/9 minus 2/6, but since we do not have common denominators right now, they're unlike, they're not the same. We had to find our lowest common denominator, which is 18, and now we need to make larger equivalent fractions down here. So we don't get to just push this across and say it's 6 and push the 2 across and say it's 2. We have to do some math to find out. If you remember yesterday, I said I like to move from the bottom to the top. So we're going to do 6 times what equals 18. How many times does 6 go into 18? 6 goes into 18 3 times. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. So I do 2 times 3, and 2 times 3 equals 6. Now here I've got 9 times what equals 18. 9 times 2 equals 18. So I do 6 times 2 and I get 12. Now don't forget, we're subtracting now. So we get to keep our same denominator, because now that it's the same, it's going to keep staying the same. But we're subtracting our numerator. So we have to say, what is 12 minus 6? So we're subtracting, we're not adding. So 12 minus 6 is 6. So 6/9 minus 2/6 equals 6/18. 6/9 is equal to 12/18. 2/6 is equal to 6/18. So we did 12/18 minus 6/18 equals 6/18. So we do have one last step. Step 4 is to simplify. And just like yesterday, some problems you can't simplify, but we got to figure out if we can or not. So up top, we wrote down the multiples. Down here, we are going to write the factors. So you can write factors of fractions, So we're going to make our little sideways T-chart again. So remember, when we say that we are going to write down the factors, that means that we are going to write down the things we can multiply to get the number over here. So what can we multiply together to get 6? An easy one to start out with is always, well, I can do 1 times 6. Let's think of another one. If we think of another 2 numbers that we can multiply together to get 6, you might say 2 and 3. 2 times 3 equals 6. And that's all of the ones that we can multiply together to get 6, all of the whole numbers that we can multiply together. Now let's do 18. So we can always start out with, we've got 1 times 18 equals 18. We've also got 2 times 9 to get 18. We have one more. We can do 6 times 3 and get 18. So now I need to find the numbers that are common in both rows. So I'm going to go ahead and circle those. So I see that I have a 1 in both rows, but we learned yesterday that I'm not going to divide these by 1 because I would just end up getting the same answer. I also see that I have a 6 in both rows. I see that I have a 2 in both rows, and I have a 3 in both rows. Wow, I have a lot of common factors between 6 and 18, don't I? So up top, remember, we wanted to find the smallest number that's the same. But down here for simplifying, we actually want to find the biggest number that's the same. So the biggest number that is the same in both rows is going to be 6. So I'm going to write 6/18 down here. I'm going to be dividing. And remember, whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. I'm dividing them both by my biggest factor, which was 6. So I'm going to divide the top by 6 and the bottom by 6. And I get for my answer, when I do 6 divided by 6, I get 1. And when I do 18 divided by 6, I get 3. So my answer, my most simplified answer, is 1/3. So 6/9 minus 2/6 equals 1/3. Use this sheet when you're going through your Seesaw assignments, and you're going to show me this sheet during your small group tomorrow. So make sure that it is completed and that it is clear and easy for you to read, because you're going to be using it to help you with your Seesaw assignments, and you're also going to be showing me tomorrow.